A very good morning to one and all present here. My name is Amogh Ajay, and I'd like to start my talk with a very simple question. Have you ever heard someone around you say that they are going to change? It might have been the smallest thing, perhaps their routine or the time they sleep, the time they spend on studying, or even something as minute as the brand of pens they use. But then, they quietly return to who they were before they said they'd change. Well, I must say, I've faced this situation an innumerable amount of times in my life. Oftentimes, this starts with unbelievable motivation and dedication. The people around me say they'll change, and for some time, they will do so. They'll be focused, they'll be committed. But most importantly, they'll look different, and they'll actually want to change. But then, we fast forward 2 weeks later, and suddenly, it's like nothing happened at all. There's no change, they're not disciplined or committed, but most importantly, it seems like they didn't want to do anything in the first place. And for human nature, we are prone to judgment. We are quick to assume that they are not determined enough, that they are not disciplined enough. But most importantly, we just say that they don't want it bad enough. Well, the fact is that we stick with this story for the same outcome for every single time this outcome repeats itself. Well, I'm here to tell you that this story is wrong. To better understand why this story is wrong, we must first understand why we as humans resist change in the first place, even if it's the best thing that can happen to us. And the best way to understand this is to close your eyes and imagine the brain as a security system. This may be the encrypted password and face ID on your phone, or even the lock and key that keeps your house protected at all times. Either way, a security system guarantees three main things: calm, composure, and most importantly, as the name suggests, safety. But imagine that suddenly someone hacks into your phone or breaks into your house. That calm, composure, and safety is immediately swapped for fear, panic, but most importantly, a sense of danger and risk. As a result of this outcome repeating itself again and again and again, the brain understands a very simple yet powerful lesson: to always choose safety before success. And now, when you talk about change, you always have to mention identity. Think to yourself, whenever you've tried to inculcate a new habit in your life, might it be waking up a bit earlier, or studying a new subject, or even trying out a new sport, are you only changing or adding a new habit, routine, or method? Or are you also doing something with your identity? And the truth is that the latter is always the case. Oftentimes, when you repeat a habit again and again and again, it becomes a part of your identity and gives you a label. For example, if I support a specific football team, I will myself as a fan of that football team. Or if I study a specific subject and have an interest in it, I will identify myself as someone who is interested in that subject. And this gives me a label. And for the brain, losing that label by pursuing new habits, methods, or routines that oppose your old ways feels like losing safety, which is the worst thing for the brain's overall survival first mindset. And well, what better way to understand the importance of labels than the school environment? I'm sure we must have all had and still have those labels in our school friend groups. Might it be the smart student, or the topper, or even the average student, the one who's weak at maths, or my personal favorite, the class comedian, who keeps everyone entertained when they need it most, and even the one who helps us all in our exams. The truth is that these labels are not chosen by the students. Rather, it's the labels that choose the students. And these labels give the students a prescription of what identity they think they can be. And the best example of this is the discovery of the Pygmalion effect in 1968. Discovered by two psychologists, Robert Rosenthal and Lenore Jacobson. They went to a school and they told the teachers that some specific students were intellectual bloomers. Basically, students who had an improved intellectual capacity than the ones around them. But the truth is that these students had no specialty about them. In fact, they were just as common as me or as other students around us. But a few months later, these students were seen doing better than everyone else in their class. Now I'm sure we're all asking the same question. How is this possible? How is it that some randomly selected students are suddenly doing better than the rest of the class? Well, these students were given more belief, more encouragement, and more patience, as a result of which they were allowed to grow to a different level. And this is proof for a very simple yet powerful philosophy. The fact that people do not perform based on just their capacity. Rather, they also perform on who they think they are allowed to be. If an identity feels safe, perhaps, for example, if a student is given more encouragement, care, or belief in the school environment, they will be further persuaded to grow and become a better version of themselves. Might it be dedicated towards academics, or sports, or even the school debate team. Or if an identity feels threatened or to be put at risk, they will retreat, and they will retreat back to the habits and routines that gave them the assurance that the brain requires in the very first place. Now that we've discussed the problem and the interlink between identity and change, you must have understood a very simple key term, resistance, that people are always resisting change in the very first place. Now, for the brain, this resistance is not rebellion. Rather, it's a cry for reassurance. The brain is never averse to change. In fact, it is always looking for signs of reassurance around it. Think to yourself, when was the last time you tried to change something? Might it be the way you sleep, or the friends you hang out around, or the way you play a specific sport? All of these things, while you might have tried to change, there would initially have been a voice in your head that said no, that simply objected. But the truth behind that voice is that it is just a cry for reassurance. And in the brain's eyes, this resistance is not rebellion. Rather, it is hesitation, it's uncertainty, but most importantly for the human mind, it's the fear of not knowing where you fit. And the resistance is more of a protection mechanism, a way for the brain to ensure that it has its own identity. Now that we've understood what the exact problem is and why we humans don't want to change in the first place, we come to the ultimate question of the speech. What's the solution to this problem? And well, I must say that the best application that I've used for this solution was in my grade 9 exams. I was cramming for hours and hours and hours, but nothing was getting in my head. I couldn't remember a single piece of information. But then, I was able to formulate my own 5-point plan, which I like to call the 5 S's. The first S is to always start small. A 30-minute spurt of work will always be better than a 3-hour stretch. The brain always requires dopamine to further encourage it to continue that work even more and extract the most information that can be extracted from it. Second, stack it. Make sure that your new habits, routines, methods are always stacked on top of your old routines to make sure that there is some familiarity. Because talking from a scientific standpoint, the brain always looks for some familiarity to make sure that this habit is what's better for the brain and the identity at large. And this helps you, further encourages you to pursue that change even more. Third, support. Make sure that the environment around you is built so that you can change, so that you can improve on what's holding you back. Fourth, streamline. Streamline can have different definitions depending on the field. If you're talking about your studies, you should keep your desk clean and your room neat to make sure that you're able to study efficiently. And if you're talking about sports, you should keep your head clear and make sure that your muscles are warmed up to play the sport. And fifth, and most importantly, is to make sure that your change is shared or seen. The main catalyst for change and difference in the human mind is for it to see the effects of its change in real time. For it to see what its change is able to bring about is for it to further encourage that change all across all the facets of its identity. And this helps you grow even more as a person and an identity. Now that we've understood the solution, the problem, and our identities, how our identity goes hand in hand with this, we come to the main conclusion. To design change that people can trust. If you want real innovation, real change, real improvement in your life and for the people around you, don't force the change. Make sure people can trust it. And the best way to do this is to remember 3 key points. To always protect identity, to build safety around the identity, and to make sure that people can grow without disappearing. Because if there's one truth about humans, it's that they do not fear growth. They only fear losing themselves. And with that thought, I'd like to end my speech. Thank you very much.